It was a Tuesday. The kind of Tuesday that starts out ordinary dishes in the sink, the hum of the old fridge, a cartoon playing too loud in the living room. Ellie was sitting on the couch, drawing something with her pink markers. Hearts, stars, stick figures holding hands. She always drew families that looked happier than ours. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. The woman on the other end spoke softly, like she was afraid her words might shatter something fragile. Mrs. Carter? This is Dr. Levin from St. John's Pediatric Cardiology. My heart started thudding. I gripped the counter until my knuckles turned white. She said words that didn't belong in the same sentence as my daughter's name. Defect, progressive, surgery, timeline. All I really heard was, without intervention, it could worsen within months. I remember looking at the cheap clock above the sink, 4:12 p.m. That was the minute I learned how fast life can split cleanly in two before and after. When I hung up, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I just stood there, phone still in my grip, feeling the air press down heavy on my chest. Ellie looked up at me. "Mommy, did I do something bad?" I sat beside her and kissed her forehead. "No, baby, you're perfect." She giggled and said, "Then why are you crying?" That night, I called my parents. Mom answered on the second ring, her voice bright and busy. "Hannah, you caught me in the middle of something. Clara's trying on her second dress fitting. What's up, sweetheart?" I told her. Everything. The diagnosis, the urgency, the cost $78,000 for the procedure, even after insurance. There was a long pause. I could almost hear her switch from mother to problem-solver mode, the kind that only ever solved problems that belonged to my sister. "Oh, honey," she said, finally. That's awful. But things are so tight right now. You know your father's investments took a hit." Her voice softened like a cushion, a kindness that still suffocated. "I wish we could help, but you'll find a way. You always do. Always." That word hurt more than any no. After we hung up, I sat on the kitchen floor, phone in my lap, the sound of Ellie's laughter echoing from the next room. My husband, Daniel, came in quietly and knelt beside me. What did they say? They can't help. He didn't ask why. He just pulled me close, forehead to forehead, and whispered, "Then we'll find a way." I wanted to believe him. But in that moment, with bills piled on the counter and the future closing in, I felt like the way had already ended. 2 days later, Daniel took the morning off so I could drive to my parents' place. I told Ellie we were visiting Grandma and Grandpa. She packed her favorite stuffed bunny and wore the yellow dress Mom had bought her last spring. She still believed in people keeping promises. Their house always smelled the same lemons and polished wood, and a kind of careful silence that didn't belong to children. Clara's laughter carried from upstairs. She was on speakerphone, arguing about flower arrangements. Mom opened the door with her arms half extended. "Oh, look at her, my little angel." She knelt to hug Ellie, then glanced up at me, smile already dimming. "You look tired," she said. "Still working nights at that place?" "Yeah," I said. "Double shifts now." She led us into the living room, where Dad was pretending to read the newspaper. He looked up, offered a short nod, then folded the pages neatly beside him like we were there for business. I explained the procedure again, the timeline, the cost, the part insurance wouldn't cover. I kept my voice steady, rehearsed. I thought if I sounded calm enough, reasonable enough, they'd listen. Mom sighed the way she did when a sales clerk showed her the wrong purse. "Hannah, I told you on the phone, it's been a hard year. The market's awful. Your father's retirement account." Dad cleared his throat. "We can't just liquidate everything for every emergency." "Every emergency?" I repeated. I didn't raise my voice. It just came out thinner, sharper. This is her heart. It's not braces or a dance class. Mom's eyes flicked toward Ellie, then back to me. "Don't say that in front of her. You'll scare her." And just like that, I was the problem again, the dramatic one, the ungrateful one. Clara came downstairs in a silk robe, holding a fabric swatch. "Oh, hey," she said, distracted. "I didn't know you were here. Mom, do we like this champagne color, or the nude?" Mom lit up. "The champagne. Definitely." For the next few minutes, the room filled with talk about lace, photographers, menus. I sat there with Ellie on my lap, feeling invisible in a house I used to belong to. When Clara finally noticed the tension, she tilted her head. "Everything okay?" Mom gave her a practiced smile. "Just family stuff. Nothing to worry about." I stood up then. "We should go." Mom followed us to the door, smoothing her blouse like that could tidy the moment. "You know we love you," she said softly. "If we had the money, we'd give it to you." I looked at her hand on the doorframe, the diamond ring she'd had resized after Dad's last promotion. "I know," I said. Outside, the air was sharp and bright. Ellie held my hand and asked, "Did Grandma say yes?" I opened the car door and smiled the kind of smile you use to keep from breaking. She said she wishes she could. When we got home, Daniel was waiting by the window. He didn't ask how it went. He didn't need to. He just said again, quietly, "We'll find a way." And I nodded, because there was nothing else to do. By March, I'd memorized the hold music for the billing office. The woman on the line always sounded kind in the way tired people do. "We understand, Mrs. Carter," she'd say, "but without a down payment, we can't schedule the procedure." I thanked her every time, even when I wanted to scream. Ellie's condition wasn't waiting for approval letters or payment plans. At work, I started picking up double shifts. Morning coffee at 6, apron tied by 7. Smiles stretched thin for customers who complained their toast was too brown. Every night I'd come home smelling like grease and disinfectant, counting tips under the flicker of our old kitchen light. Daniel worked late too. Extra deliveries, overtime weekends. We were two ghosts passing in a hallway, leaving sticky notes instead of conversations. One evening, while Ellie slept beside me on the couch, I scrolled through my phone trying to find old contacts, anyone who might lend us something. That's when I saw an article in the local living section. Socialite Clara Jennings celebrates engagement in style. My mother's face was there, smiling wide beside her. A short paragraph mentioned a stunning $70,000 deposit for the exclusive oceanfront venue. I stared at the screen until the words lost shape. My chest didn't even ache, it went numb, like it had decided it was done caring. When Daniel came home, I showed him the article. He read it, jaw tightening, and then set the phone face down on the counter. "They lied to you," he said. I laughed, but it came out dry. "No, they didn't. They just didn't say who they were saving it for." He put his arms around me, but I didn't melt into them. I just stood there, still holding the image of that smiling photograph behind my eyelids. The next morning, Mom called. Her voice was too bright. "I was just thinking about you. Did you see Clara's article? Isn't it wonderful?" I didn't mention the surgery or the bills. I just said, "Yeah, wonderful." She paused, maybe sensing something in my tone, then added quickly, "We're all so proud of her. You should come to the shower next month." I told her I'd try. Then I hung up, walked into Ellie's room, and watched her sleep, her chest rising and falling with that fragile rhythm that made me want to tear the world apart just to keep it going. That night I filled out another grant form. The question at the end asked, "How would this financial support impact your family?" I wrote, "It would keep us together." And then I hit send. By the time I drove back to my parents' house, I'd rehearsed what to say a dozen different ways. Every version ended with me trying not to cry. Mom was in the kitchen arranging tulips in a vase. She smiled when she saw me. "Oh, Hannah, you should have called. I just finished ordering the linens for Clara's reception." I set my bag down. "I saw the article," I said. Her hand stilled above the flowers. "What article?" "The one about the $70,000 deposit." She exhaled slowly, as if the problem was my tone, not the number. "Sweetheart, please don't make this about money again. This is your sister's wedding. It's supposed to be a happy time. It could have been a happy time for Ellie too if you'd helped when I asked." Dad walked in just then, adjusting his watch. "What's all this?" I turned toward him. "Ellie's surgery. You said you couldn't afford to help, remember?" He frowned. "We can't just pull money from retirement every time something happens." "Something happens," I repeated, tasting the words. "She's 6. Her heart's failing. That's not something that just happens." Mom's voice sharpened. "Don't raise your voice in this house." I lowered it. "Then listen while it's quiet." For a moment nobody spoke. The refrigerator hummed. Clara's laughter floated down the stairs, and I thought how strange it was that cruelty could live in such an ordinary room. Mom finally said, "This is different, Hannah. A wedding is once in a lifetime. A surgery, well, they do those every day." I felt my knees weaken. Dad added, "You chose your life, sweetheart. You made your bed. Now be an adult about it." I almost laughed. "An adult?" "Adults take responsibility," he said. I looked at the two of them, their calm faces, the house filled with things bought for joy instead of need. Then I picked up my bag. "You don't have to worry. I won't ask again." Outside, the air was thick with spring rain. Daniel was waiting in the car. He didn't need to ask. He just reached for my hand. "They said no," I whispered. He nodded once. "Then we'll do it alone." It wasn't a promise. It was survival. That night I wrote, "We'll do this alone," on the corner of an envelope and taped it above the fridge, our own kind of mantra. Every time I looked at it, the words hurt less and meant more. By June, the letters stopped being polite. They came in thick white envelopes stamped with words like, "Final notice and immediate attention required." I'd open them on the counter while stirring pasta for Ellie, pretending it was just another part of the day. Her coloring pencils were always scattered near the bills, tiny bursts of color against the gray. I used to tell her stories while she drew. Lately, I just didn't have the voice for it. Daniel was barely sleeping. He'd leave before sunrise for work, come home after midnight, eyes rimmed in red. Sometimes he'd find me still at the kitchen table, calculator open, trying to make numbers do impossible things. We were both too tired to cry. The first collapse happened on a Wednesday. Ellie was in art class when the school nurse called. Her lips looked a little blue, she said gently. We thought it was safer to call an ambulance. By the time I reached the hospital, Ellie was sitting up again, tiny and smiling, asking if she could still have her juice box. The doctor said the words I'd been trying not to think. "It's time to schedule the surgery. Soon." I nodded, but I couldn't feel my body anymore. Just the buzzing in my ears and the sound of the monitor keeping time with her heart. That night, after she'd fallen asleep, I sat in the living room scrolling mindlessly, trying to disappear for a moment. A headline caught my eye, "Inside Clara Jennings's Dream Honeymoon." I didn't want to click. I clicked anyway. There she was, my sister, in a white sundress, standing on a pier with her new husband. Caption: "Private villa in Bora Bora. Gifted by her parents, $200,000 dream trip." For a second, I thought I was reading it wrong. Then I saw my mother in the background of one of the photos, wearing a hat big enough to hide her face. I stared until my vision blurred. The phone slipped from my hand and hit the floor, screen shattering across the image. Daniel came in from the hallway. "What happened?" I didn't answer. I just whispered, "She'll never know." He knelt beside me. "Who?" "Ellie. She'll never know they chose a honeymoon over her heartbeat." I didn't scream. I didn't call them. I just went to bed, pulled Ellie close, and listened to her breathing like it was the only thing left keeping me alive. The next morning, I emailed the hospital. I told them I'd find the money. I had no idea how. But for the first time in weeks, my voice didn't shake when I said it out loud. 2 days after the breakdown, I came home from work to find a cardboard box on our porch. Inside were envelopes, some crumpled, some new. Each one had a note, written in different handwriting. "Heard about your daughter. Hope this helps. From the Wednesday regulars. Praying for Ellie. Someone shared your story online. Keep fighting." Daniel stood beside me, eyes wide. There was a check on top, then another, then 10 more. By the time I finished counting, my hands were shaking. It wasn't enough for the full cost, but it was close. Close enough that the hospital agreed to move forward with the surgery. I never found out exactly who started it. A friend from the diner must have posted about us. Someone shared it, then someone else did. Kindness has a way of spreading faster than pity. When I told Mom, she said, "Oh honey, I wish you'd told us you were going public like that. People talk, you know. It reflects on all of us." That was the last time I called her before the surgery. The morning of the operation, the world felt muted, like sound had been turned down. Ellie was calm, too calm. She held my hand and whispered, "Can I keep the bracelet they gave me?" I smiled. "That's yours now, baby." When the doors closed behind her, I finally broke. Daniel pulled me into him, his shirt soaking through with everything I'd been holding back for months. For hours we sat in that cold waiting room, styrofoam cups of coffee, the beeping of distant machines, nurses calling names that weren't ours. Then the surgeon walked in, mask pulled down, tired but smiling. "She's going to be okay." I think I stopped breathing before I started crying. When they finally let me see her, Ellie was sleeping, tiny wires running from her chest like threads of light. Her small hand twitched toward mine, and I realized she'd made it through something no child should ever have to face. And she did it without the people who were supposed to stand behind her. That night, Daniel and I sat in the hospital parking lot, headlights off, the city spread out below us like a quiet apology. He said, "You should tell them she's okay." I shook my head. "They'll see the photos eventually." He didn't argue. He knew this wasn't silence out of spite. It was survival. The price of the miracle wasn't money. It was knowing, finally, that my parents would never be who I needed them to be. The wound had stopped bleeding, but it would always ache when the weather changed. It was a Tuesday again, almost 6 weeks after the surgery. Ellie was at home, sprawled on the living room rug, coloring hearts that looked a little like the one stitched inside her chest. I was folding laundry, trying to make our small life feel ordinary again, when my phone buzzed. "Mom." For a second, I thought about ignoring it, but some reflex I hadn't killed yet made me swipe answer. Her voice was bright, effortless. "Hannah, you sound tired, sweetheart. How's my girl doing?" "She's out of ICU," I said. "Oh, thank God." The pause that followed was short but heavy. Then, "Clara's honeymoon photos are out. Did you see the waterfall suite? You'd love it, it's absolutely magical." I stared at the pile of folded towels in front of me. "She's in Bora Bora, right?" "Yes," Mom said, cheerful again. "They're calling it their once-in-a-lifetime trip. Your father even helped them book a second photographer. The shots are breathtaking." There was that word again, once in a lifetime. I bit the inside of my cheek until I could taste iron. "She looks happy," I said finally. Mom exhaled, relieved to have my approval. "I knew you'd understand." Then she hesitated. "You sound distant. Are you upset with us?" I almost laughed. "Upset?" The word felt too small for what we'd lived through. "No," I said softly. "Just tired." "You've always been strong," she said. "You'll bounce back. You always do." And there it was, the same casual dismissal, wrapped in affection. She still thought I was the daughter who could carry everything alone. Maybe I was. "I'm glad she's happy, Mom," I said. "Well, we're all so proud of her," she replied. "And proud of you too for managing everything on your own. Really shows your independence." That word independence settled in my throat like a stone. I said goodbye first. When I hung up, the silence didn't hurt this time. It just felt honest. Later that evening, Daniel asked, "Your mom?" "Yeah," I said. He looked at me for a long time. "You okay?" I folded another towel. "I think so." We sat there together, quiet, while Ellie's laughter drifted in from the other room, soft, unburdened, free. The phone didn't ring again after that, and I didn't miss the sound. Later that night, I looked at the photo of Ellie taped above the fridge, her hospital wristband hanging beside it. Then I whispered into the quiet, "She's alive. We're okay." And for the first time in a long time, I believed it. The days had started blending together again, the same antiseptic smell, the same soft shuffle of nurses' shoes, the same paper cup of burnt coffee Daniel always brought me before dawn. Ellie's condition had been stable for a while, and we were daring to believe that maybe, just maybe, the worst had passed. She'd been coloring that morning. A sun, 2 stick figures holding hands. "That's you and Daddy," she'd said, grinning. "And that's me. The heart's better now." I smiled, tracing her tiny handprints across the paper. "It is, sweetheart. It really is." 2 weeks later, the hospital room hummed the same low rhythm it always did, machines counting heartbeats in digital blips. That night, the lights dimmed early. Daniel was asleep in the chair by her bed. I stayed awake, listening to the hum of machines, the rhythm that had become the sound of hope. Then, Sometime past midnight, the rhythm broke. The monitor beeped sharply once, then again, faster. The nurses came running. I heard the doctor's voice, calm but clipped. "She's going into cardiac arrest. Code blue." Someone tried to pull me away, but I clung to her hand, whispering, "Stay, baby. Please stay." There were flashes of blue scrubs, a flurry of motion, the air thick with orders and alarms, then silence. Just the long, unbroken note. The kind that doesn't stop even when the room does. I don't remember falling to the floor, or the sound that came out of me. Only Daniel's arms around me, and the way the curtain swayed gently as if the air itself was mourning. Daniel's hand was on my shoulder. All I could hear was, "She's gone, Hannah." The funeral was small. No flowers from my parents. No calls. No message. Daniel and I sat in the front pew, hands clasped so tight it hurt. When the coffin lowered, I thought of all the nights I'd told her. "It's okay. Mommy's here." But now I wasn't sure who I was saying it for anymore. The weeks that followed were a blur. I stopped checking my phone. The world could have ended, and I wouldn't have noticed. Grief is strange. It doesn't arrive in waves like they say. It seeps, slow and constant, until it fills every corner of who you were. One evening, after another day of silence, I looked at the photo of Ellie taped above the fridge, her hospital wristband still looped beside it. I traced her smile and whispered, "You're safe now." The words sounded foreign. For the first time in months, I cried without hiding. 6 months later, the world moved on without us. I went back to work part-time, then full-time. Daniel and I started a small online shop selling handmade keepsakes, charms, art, things inspired by Ellie's drawings. People liked the honesty of it, the tenderness. Slowly, painfully, we began to rebuild. I didn't speak to my parents again. Until one night, a post slid across my feed from a cousin I barely remembered. "Congratulations, Clara and Adam, on your baby boy. The first grandchild our family is overjoyed." My breath caught. There they were, my parents in the photo, smiling, radiant, holding a child who wasn't mine. Balloons, champagne, silverware glinting under warm light. I stared until my eyes burned. They hadn't come to Ellie's funeral, but they'd shown up for Clara's baby shower in matching blue outfits. The caption read, "Couldn't ask for better grandparents." That night, I didn't sleep. Something hardened quietly inside me. Not anger, not hatred, just the weight of knowing how easily love had been replaced. From then on, I worked differently. Fiercer. Daniel and I built the business from our living room into a small office, then into a warehouse. By the second year, we had contracts, clients, employees, not wealth exactly, but stability and dignity. Meanwhile, my family's pictures filled the internet: vacations, dinners, endless celebrations. They looked untouchable. I stopped looking. Then, one morning, an email arrived from my aunt. Subject line, "I thought you should know." I almost deleted it, but something in my chest told me to open it. The message was short. "Your parents invested in a company that turned out to be a fraud. They've lost everything: house, savings, all of it. Your father's health isn't good. I thought you should know before you read it somewhere else." My hands shook. I searched the company's name online, and there it was. Headlines, arrests, a massive scam. Their entire fortune, gone overnight. I sat for a long time, staring at the screen, thinking about how easily money disappears, how people spend their lives worshipping something that can vanish in a single bad choice. They hadn't saved my daughter's life because they said they couldn't afford it. But somehow, they'd found hundreds of thousands for parties and investments. Now, it was gone. All of it. But I didn't contact them. 2 weeks passed before my phone started ringing again. "Mom." Then again. And again. I didn't answer. Daniel asked once, "Will you call back?" I shook my head. Not. Then one night, someone knocked at the door. When I opened it, she was there, my mother. Smaller somehow, her hair streaked with gray, her voice softer than I'd ever heard. "Hannah," she said. "Please. We need to talk." I stepped aside. "Come in." The warmth of our home seemed to startle her. She looked around at the modest furniture, the shelves of books, The framed photo of Ellie on the wall. Her voice cracked. "You've built such a lovely life." I said nothing. She took a breath. "We've lost everything. Your father's sick. The house is gone. Clara and Adam helped a little, but they have their own family now. We need about $150,000 to cover his treatment." I met her eyes. "You're asking for help because you're broke?" Her chin trembled. "Yes." "Sounds familiar." She flinched, tears welling. "I know we hurt you, but you're stronger now. Ellie's fine, right? You've moved on, Ellie's fine now? You're doing so well?" Her sentence broke off when she saw my face. She didn't. I didn't need to say it. The silence answered for me. Her knees gave way. She sank into a chair, covering her mouth. "Oh, Hannah," she whispered. "I didn't know. You didn't ask," I said. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, she said, "We can't undo it. But we're still family. Please, help us." I walked to the desk, opened a folder, and pulled out a printed page. It wasn't anger anymore. It was justice, written neatly in ink. "I'll help," I said, "but on my terms." She took the paper and read. They would publicly admit what they'd done, the choice they made, the price it cost, and once the funds were transferred, there would be no more contact. No calls, no visits. Her voice cracked. "You can't mean this." "I do," I said. "You taught me the price of choices. This is mine." She stared at me, trembling, then whispered, "This is cruel." "No," I said softly. "This is closure." She came back the next day with my father. He was frail, walking with a cane, his eyes dull with regret. They signed without a word. I transferred the money. As they turned to leave, I said quietly, "You could have saved her. Instead, you saved your pride." My mother looked back, her eyes red. "You'll never know how much I wish I could trade places with her." "I already do," I said. The door closed. They kept their word. The admission appeared online a week later, brief, honest, stripped of excuses. "We failed our daughter when she needed us most. We hope no family repeats our mistake." People talked for a while. Then they moved on. But I didn't. A year later, Daniel and I welcomed twins, a boy and a girl. Their laughter filled the house like light through open windows. But even then, I'd find myself glancing at Ellie's picture on the fridge, whispering goodnight. Grief never leaves. It just learns where to stand. Sometimes I think about my parents, where they are, if they're still together, if they ever found peace. And maybe that's the lesson life gave me in the end. That revenge isn't always about making someone pay. Sometimes it's about proving you can still love, still rise, still live fully, even when the ones who should have loved you couldn't.